They say grief fades with time, that the ache in your chest softens, becomes a dull echo instead of a roar. But for me, it never really faded, it just settled, like dust on a bookshelf no one ever touches. You learn to live around it. You smile. You cook. You go to the same places. You tell yourself this is peace. But every now and then something small, an old photograph, a song in the supermarket, a stranger's cologne pulls you under again. My name is Margaret. I'm 65 years old. It's been 10 years since I lost my husband, George. 10 long years. And though I've made peace with the rhythm of my days, I had come to accept that love, the kind that warms your bones and makes the world feel just a little less lonely, was something I had left in the past. Until the day I met him. It was a cold morning in late February. The kind where the wind bites and your scarf never feels thick enough. I was sitting in the hospital waiting room for my regular checkup, nothing urgent, just one of those routine things that come with getting older. The room was filled with the usual quiet tension. People flipping through outdated magazines, eyes fixed on their phones, others just staring ahead, lost in thought. A hush that wasn't peaceful but heavy. I always sat by the window. I liked watching the sky, the parking lot, the slow sway of bare tree branches. There was something steady in the way nature moved, even when people didn't. That morning, as I stared at a bird hopping between patches of frost, someone sat beside me. And somehow the air changed. He smelled of cedar and something faintly sweet like wool and old paper. When I turned my head, I saw a man, perhaps early 70s. Tall, neatly dressed in a black wool coat. Silver hair combed back, his back straight like he'd spent his life walking with purpose. He looked calm, collected. But it was his eye-skinned, gentle, that made something in me stir. I don't usually speak to strangers in waiting rooms, but the words escaped me before I could stop them. Good morning. He looked slightly surprised, then offered the warmest smile I'd seen in years. Good morning. There was a pause, the kind that would have felt awkward if his presence hadn't already put me at ease. We exchanged names. He was Edward. He came here every month too, he said. Same time, same floor. And yet somehow we'd never noticed each other before. Funny how two people can orbit the same spaces and remain invisible until something shifts. We spoke for only a few minutes that day. About nothing, really. The weather, how long the wait always seemed, the discomfort of hospital lighting. But it was the easiest conversation I'd had in years. When he was called in for his appointment, he turned to me before standing. I hope we run into each other again. I smiled. So do I. And to my surprise, I meant it. The next month, I found myself brushing my hair, a little longer before leaving the house. I added a touch of perfume I hadn't used since George passed. Just a little behind the ears. I told myself it was silly, that it was just a checkup and nothing would come of it. But when I opened the waiting room door and saw him sitting in the same seat, coat neatly folded in his lap, smiling the moment he recognized, something bloomed in my chest. Margaret, he said, like he'd been hoping I'd appear. Edward, I replied, and took the seat beside him. We talked more that day. He told me he used to work in publishing, retired now. Loved poetry, jazz, and just like me photography. That last one caught my breath. I've taken photos for years, I said. Mostly nature. Trees, flowers, bits of light. Things people overlook. He chuckled. Same. I find the world slows down when I'm behind the lens. Something in me softened. Would you like to maybe go take pictures together sometime? He asked. I hesitated. It had been so long since a man invited me anywhere, but his voice held no pressure. Just hope. I nodded. Yes, I'd like that. We met the following week at a nearby park. Early March. The wind still had teeth, but the trees were beginning to bud. Little green shoots peeked from the earth. Children chased each other in jackets too thin for the temperature. Spring was trying. I wore a pale blue blouse, and the earrings George had given me on our 20th anniversary. I told myself I was wearing them for no reason. I was lying. Edward arrived with a camera slung over his shoulder and a scarf tucked neatly into his coat. You look beautiful, he said. No one had said that to me in 10 years. We walked slowly through the park, stopping here and there to take photos. I caught him mid-frame, once crouching to photograph a blossom completely focused. He caught me catching him. You got me, he said, laughing. You looked peaceful. May I take a photo of you? I paused, then nodded. As he lifted his camera, I felt myself seen not as a woman, defined by years or widowhood, but simply a woman. It felt good. We sat after reviewing the shots. He showed me Onem, standing under a cherry tree, smiling at the camera. My eyes softened. I barely recognized myself. "I love this photo," I said. He looked at me. "So do I." And in that moment, I knew something had changed. We began seeing each other more. Hospital visits, photo walks, even lunch at a quiet cafe near the river. There was no rush, no declarations, just gentle closeness growing in the spaces we hadn't realized were still empty. Then came the night it all shifted. We had spent the afternoon in a botanical garden sunlight filtered through early blooms, the scent of earth rising after days of rain. We talked about our favorite music. He loved Coltrane. I confessed my guilty pleasure for old love ballads. When we reached my door, I turned and said, "Would you like to come in? Just for a cup of tea?" He paused, then nodded. The apartment suddenly felt different with him inside. Not bigger or smaller, just warmer. I made tea with shaking hands while he admired the photos on my walls. One still included George smiling in a summer garden. "He looks kind," Edward said gently. He was. We sat together on the couch, steam curling from our mugs. "You make this place feel peaceful," he said quietly. "I'm glad." He looked at me, then not just looked, but saw. And something inside me melted. "I've missed this," he said. "Not just companionship, but connection." I reached for his hand. It felt solid and warm. He leaned in slowly, giving me time. Our lips met soft, tentative, then again deeper, more certain. His hand cupped my cheek. I let myself lean in, surrendering to something I thought I had lost forever. We kissed until the tea went cold. Then, wordlessly, we stood. He followed me into the bedroom. We undressed slowly, like opening long-forgotten letters. When his hands explored my body, I trembled not from fear, but from remembering. Remembering what it was to be touched with tenderness, to be desired. He whispered my name as his fingers traced my skin. "Margaret." My breath caught. His mouth followed the curve of my shoulder, the valley of my chest, the softness of my belly. He took his time. And when we joined, it was not urgent, it was reverent. We moved together in a rhythm that felt like rediscovery, like spring returning to a frozen place. Every sigh, every gasp felt like reclaiming something I'd buried long ago. Afterward, we lay tangled beneath the sheets. The rain began again outside, a soft percussion against the windows. "Will you let me stay?" he asked. I looked at him, heart full. "Yes," I said. Since that night, we've shared many mornings. We still take photos, still meet at the hospital. But now we share silence, meals, and the joy of waking to another body breathing beside you. We are not young. We do not pretend to be. But there is a kind of fire that only burns in the quiet years, slow, deep, steady. Sometimes when he brushes my hair from my face, I feel tears rise not from sadness, but from wonder. Wonder that something so gentle, so right found me again. This, I think, is what people mean by a second spring.